Yesterday we began a sugya of schita of Paris. We said a chidush that even though the most squeezable fruit, which are grapes and olives, if you take the grapes and you squeeze them directly into the food, then it doesn't have a din of a mashke, and therefore you're not considered separating it from an ochel. It is an ochel, and therefore you're able to do that lichat chila on Shabbos, squeeze the grape directly into the fruit. So it's amazing. If you would go ahead and squeeze it out for it, it's a told of mafarek. It's one of the others malachos. Yet if you squeeze it out into the food directly, it has a din of food. We also brought in a kasha from pickles, from pickled food, and from cooked food. And we're going to analyze the machlokes today that we had yesterday between Rav, Shmuel, and we're going to have the sheet of Rabbi Yochanan. So Rav said the following: if you're going ahead in pickled food, you're squeezing it out to enhance the food, not for the mashka, then it'll be permitted lechatchila. It'll be permitted lechatchila to go ahead and squeeze out the food if it's for the need of the food. If, however, it's for the mashka, then it's patal ava asar. It's not considered, fellas. It's not considered a chiyuv deraisa because the juice is really a foreigner. It's not inherently part of the yerek. It entered the yerek from the outside. It's not a natural extract. The juice that's going to come out of the pickle, for example, is the brine that went into the pickle. So therefore, it's patal avalasa. It's similar to squeezing a natural thing. Shlakos, if it's cooked, says Rav across the board, it's mutter. Why? Because shlakos is not even similar to kvasim, and you won't have to squeeze anything out. That's his shita. Shmuel says that Shmuel holds like Rav by pickles, and he holds the same thing by shlakos. So he disagrees by Rav by shlakos. He says by shlakos, then it's also pat avalasa for the brine that comes out. So let's see the Gemara inside. Gufa. Kvasim shesachtan. If you have kvashim, if you have pickled vegetables, shesachtan, that you went ahead and you squeezed. Amarav legufan. If you squeeze to enhance the food itself, just to get rid of the liquid, then mutter. It's permitted. Lemei mehen. If conversely, you went ahead and you squeezed it for that liquid that's inside, pata, avalasa. And again, why isn't that a chiyuv deraisa? Because again, it's an external juice. It went in from the outside. Ushlakos, and if it's cooked vegetables, bein legufo and bein lemeimehem, whether it's for themselves or for the juice, mutta will be mutta lichatchila. Okay. Shmuel lama echad zeh v'echad zeh. There's no difference between pickled and cooked. Legufo and mutta for themselves will be mutta lemeimehem pata. So you argue on Rav by shlakos. Rav said shlakos is mutta across the board. He said it would be mutta and pata, the same as what as by pickle. Rav Yochanan Amar echad kvashim ve'echad shlakos legufo and mutta lemeimehem chayv chatas. He holds, wow, Rav Yochanan is so severe. He holds, even though it's an external juice, it would be mamis similar to spita of zeisim v'anovim, and you be chayv chatas. Okay, so now all of them clearly hold, fellas, that lichatchila for the juice you can't go ahead and squeeze. They all agree, correct? They all agree by pickled. They argue by shlakos, but clearly pickled you cannot squeeze for the juice. Mesidei soichtin kvasim b'Shabbos l'tzarech haShabbos. You can go ahead and squeeze pickled vegetables l'tzarech Shabbos for the need of Shabbos. Avalei l'maitz Shabbos. Clearly, this is a question on all three of them. All three of them held you could not go ahead and squeeze. Now, over here, it's very vague. It could be squeezing it for the juice, but it just says in general you could squeeze. So initially, mashma, even for the juice, you could squeeze it, even for the juice. And none, Rav Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan hold across the board, you can't. So this is a question on all of them. Let's continue the brisa, right? And Avaloi Motzei Shabbos. V'zeisim v'anovim lo yischait. V'msachat chayv chatas v'chayv chatas. Kashal Rav, Kashal Shmuel, Kashal Rabbi Yochanan. Each one of them held you cannot squeeze for the juice the pickled vegetable. Over here it says a general statement, you could squeeze, and we can apply it for what? For the juice. Now, of course, it's very easy to answer, guys. He meant legufan. You could squeeze legufan, and so each one, Rav, Shmuel, and Rabbi Yochanan, will tweak the brisa to fit their words. So now, let's go through. What does Rav hold, guys? Pickled muta leguf, and pata aval asa for what? On the juice, and shlokos muta across the board. So now, Rav Mataras Tamei, Shmuel Mataras Tamei, Rabbi Yochanan Mataras Tamei. Rav Mataras Tamei, soichnik kvasim b'Shabbos, you can squeeze him, l'tzarcha Shabbos, avaloi l'motzei Shabbos. That's what the brisa says. Now here's the tweaking. That you can do this, legufan, very good. Mutta, if you went ahead and you squeeze it legufan for itself. But if you're squeezing it for the juice, pata avalasa. In that case, it'll be pata avalasa. And the shlokos, however, if you cook it, not pickle it, whether it's for itself or for the juice, mutta, this is, we're all sticking in the brisa. Do not go ahead and squeeze. So that's the way Rav would go ahead and teach the brisa according to his way of thinking. And therefore, what? It works. Now, what did Shmuel say? There's no difference between pickled, and there's no difference between cooked, shlokos. For itself, it's mutter. For the juice, it's not. Over here, it's a shlokos mashma across the board is okay. Shmuel Mataras Tamei, Shmuel will answer with the brisa according to his way of thinking. Who are doing the shlokos? And the same would apply to what? To shlokos. The same would apply to cooked vegetables. If you need it for itself, if you're extracting the juice, the better the vegetable, that's mutter l'chatchila. If you're going in and extracting the juice for the juice, pata avalasa, good. Now, we had then the Shita Rabbi Yochanan, who said that if you extract juice, you chayiv chatas. There's no pata avalasa according to him. Rabbi Yochanan tells us, "Mei soichnin kvasim l'tzayich haShabbos, avalei l'motzei Shabbos, echad kvasim v'echad shlachos, v'medavar mamurim l'gufon." That's if you want the vegetable. No difference if it's a cooked vegetable or a pickled vegetable. You can go ahead and extract the juice. Aval memeyem, but if you're extracting the juice from a pickled and or cooked, l'yischay. And what happens if you do it? Will view it the same as if you squeeze Zaysim V'Anovim, the Chayiv Chatas, and you be Chayiv Chatas. Okay? That's each one answered according to your way. Rav Chia bar Rashi, Rav.
I'm sorry, we're which stuff up to?
Kuf Mem Hey Amid Aleph.
Okay.
We're learning Masechta Shabbos. Okay, anyway. So, sorry, it was a layup. Anyway, so we schita of Zaysim V'Anovim is a Chayiv Chatas. That's normally where you guys, you have a wine press and an olive press. You don't have pomegranate presses. You don't have berry presses. You certainly don't, right? Those are the presses that we have. So now, the Var Torah ain't a chayiv el al drisa zaysim v'anovim. Var Torah, you only chayiv by putting a bean on zaysim v'anovim bilvad. The Chaintani debate Menashe, the Yeshiva Menashe, the Var Torah ain't a chayiv el al drisa zaysim v'anovim bilvad. Okay. Now, this is a brisa, and because this is brisa, we're going to bring two more dinim. Okay, let me give you the foreshadow of the two more dinim outside. We know that women are pasal edis. We also know that an eid echad is usually an eid echad is believed to be surim, but usually you need two eidim to go ahead and be made. However, mishum iguna hikil b'rabbanan a tremendous kula that edis ish is believed to say that her husband died. But later, if you had women who said in the concentration camp they saw a man go into a gas chamber, she would be believed to report this, and based upon her report, the Chachamim would matter this woman to remarry. And Isha Daikla Mitzvah, she'll check it out herself. That's what we hold. Eid Mipi Eid is kosher by Eidus Isha. Now, what about a Bechar? Bechar is a very interesting halacha. If you go ahead and give a Bechar to a Kayin, now, the last thing on earth the Kayin wants is a Bechar without a mum, because that without a mum is a full-fledged carbon. So it's a pain during this Zman of Beis Hamikdash. It's a takala when there is no Beis Hamikdash, because you can't work it, you can't use its sharings. It's a pain. You can't. So therefore, it behooves the kohen for all intents and purposes to get a mum in that bechor. Because if he does, it becomes the backyard barbecue, right? So now you're Yisrael, you give a kohen a mum, you give a kohen a full, unblemished bechor, and all of a sudden, punkt, it has a blemish. He needs aidis that he didn't put the blemish in. Is a woman who's believed by aidis isha, for example, to say that her husband died, is she believed to say the kohen did not go ahead and put the mum in there? Right? It's nothing to do with Masechta Shabbos. It says the Gemara inside. If it ain't aid mipi aid kasha amid beis, el aidis isha b'vad. Iboilahu. Aid mipi aid. One aid mipi aid. Passing it down the line. Aidis b'chor mahu. So one, you heard from one. Again, it's the game of telephone. Aid b'chor mahu. Ravami asar. Ravami says it's asar. Ravasi shari. Ravami says it's not believed. Asi says it is believed. Only Ravami who says it's asar. Rav Asi who says it's muta. But Tanid Be Menashe ain't aid mipi aid kasha elo le'edis isha b'vad. So how can you tell me it's kasha for edis b'chor? How can you tell me it's good for b'chor? Says the Gemara. Ema say the following: le'edis shoy isha kashera la b'vad. In other words, read the Bryce says ain aid mipi aid believed only in edis that woman would be believed, and since women are believed for b'chor, therefore what aid mipi aid would be believed also for b'chor. Since a woman believed b'chor, aid mipi aid b'chor. Rav Yema achsha aid mipi aid b'chor. Rav Yema permitted it. Korila Marema went ahead and said about Amemar, Yema shari b'chor. Derogatorily, he said Yema the mata of b'chor. In other words, he didn't hold that you believe aid mipi aid. The Hilchah said the halacha is aid mipi aid kasha b'chor. It would be believed. Aid mipi aid would be believed for b'chor to say that the kohen did not put a mum in the b'chor. The last end of the Mishnah was Erev Shabbos. If you go ahead and you crack a honeycomb, and the honey goes ahead and it oozes into the wax, whether you keep it on Shabbos or not. So the Chum said you can't, and Rabbi Eliezer said you could. And now we want to know, what about the din of Zeisim Vanovim that you cut before Shabbos? Zeisim Vanovim you cut before Shabbos. It says when Chalas the Vash Kiyosar Avayshia Minadoi Asab Yasim Asisam Biyadi brought the following mission in his hand. Zeisim Vanovim Sheriska Me'erev Shabbos. Zeisim Vanovim that you went ahead and you resik Erev Shabbos. The Yotzame Atzmam, and they float out. Again, you did it Erev Shabbos. It didn't come out on Shabbos. It came out Erev Shabbos, right? Asurim, it's still Asa. Because you're scared, you're going to go ahead and make come to go ahead and cut it on Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Matirin, Rabbi Lezer, and Rabbi Shimon Mata. So apparently, this is the exact same din of our Mishnah. This is the exact same din of our Mishnah that Rabbi Oishia from Nadoi and Amoira is saying. He seems to be saying the exact same din. Just go ahead and replace bee honey with Zeis Nevanovim. And he added the word of Shimon. So Amar Rav Yosef, Gavri Yisera Aslash Minan. Said Rav Yosef to Rishya, what are you telling me? You're telling me that Rav Shimon agrees with Rabbi Elazar? That's all. Seemingly, you seem to be saying the same thing. In other words, clearly he's holding that there's no difference between honey and grapes and olives. There's no difference. The only difference you're telling me is Rav Shimon, who was not in our Mishnah. So he's saying to him, but you can't tell me, Rav Yosef says to Rav Shia, you can't tell me Rav Shimon agrees with this? Amalei, no, said Rav Shia, it's not true. Amalei, Abaya, Tuva Kamash one. Says Abaya, no. Rav Shia is telling the big Chiddush. The Maslisan, if just in my Mishnah, I would have thought, Pasam hu demei kara ochla, ulabasayf ochla. There in the beginning, the honey was eichel in the beginning, and the end also was honey. It was also an eichel. Aval hacha, initially, demei kara eichla, initially was a grape. Ulabasayf mashka. I would say even though it was not on Erev Shabbos, I would say on Shabbos it's not permitted to go ahead and use it. Kimash Malon Rabbi Shia, that even though it's a mashka, you will be able to use it. I just have to choose myself.
Or get yourself some grade 1 bars. They also have the B12 in them.
Also suppository, yeah, it works.
I tell you the truth, no matter what I take, about 4 o'clock I get hungry.
Okay, I lost somebody. I went away, there were 15 people, now there's only 14. Who checked out on me? Nathan. It's Nathan. He's not there. Okay, anyway, here we go. Says the Mishnah. Kol sheva b'chamim, anything that was cooked before Shabbos, b'chamim, me'erev Shabbos, shoyim esrei b'chamim b'Shabbos. You can soak it on Shabbos in hot water, I guess it would not be a kli rishon, Ein bishul acha bishul. V'chol shlei ba b'chamim erev Shabbos. Anything that was not kind of look at Rashi. Avrami Weinrib going basa yavesh dried meat. She'oichlan sechai that you eat raw. Ayidei chak. Ayidei chak. People would eat raw meat, and therefore what? That you would not be able to put what? You would not be able to put in hot water. But madichin say b'chamim, you could go ahead and splash hot water on it. You could pour hot water on it. Chutz min hamaliach hayashan, except if you have a dag that was salted from the year before. Rashi says, dag maliach shel shana sha'avra. Can you imagine? In those days, they had no. I tell you what, they had no refrigeration, and they must have had very high blood pressure because the amount of salt that they used to go ahead and salt a salted fish from a year before. Salted fish from a year before.
In a barrel.
Excuse me?
That could be herring in a barrel, or it could be the dried bacala. They sell that.
1,000%. You get
bacala, codfish.
Yeah.
You know
Hey,
that.
go ahead, Harry.
I have a bunch of food experts here. It's amazing. I'm telling you.
Viteros.
Anyway, so yeah. Okay, so it's are we going back to the Vita Rose days?
Way back.
Okay, anyway, I know that look. Anyway, so you have over here, you have these you have these from a year, it was gone, and now you can't put hot water on them, because by putting hot water on them, that's their bishul. The kulius haspanim, our famous Spanish mackerel of fame that we met before, shadachasan zuhi gemar malachton. Washing them is their what? Is their gemar malacha, if you wash them. Okay, the Gemara is interesting Gemara. It's very much Hashem on Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Tisha B'Av, giving us a little break. Says the Gemara, Kigoyin Mai. You want to tell me this chamim that you go ahead and put in hot water? What are we talking about? Amrav Safra. What are we speaking about? Kigoyin Tarnagolta de Rav Abba. Like Rav Abba's Tarnagolta. Says Rashi, Tarnagolta de Rav Abba. Mevashla. The shoyra isa yomim rabim, you would cook it, and it would be many days. Bechamim and hot water. Limchais me'alaha, not much it would get obliterated. But oichel refuah, and you eat it for refuah. Now I don't think it's chicken soup. I think it's like putrefied chicken. So Vamrav Safra zimin chada one time ikloyas lahasam. I came there for oichel minei, and I ate this chicken or rababa in Bavel. The loy Rabbi Abba the Ashken Cham, if not I guess in Eretz Yisrael. The loy Rabbi Abba the Ashken Chamra bar Tilsa Tarfe. If not, the Rabbi Abba gave us to drink three-year-old wine. It's nasi. Rashi says I would have puked. So I guess they're not big fans of this food. Rabbi Yochanan roik mikutach tabavli. Rabbi Yochanan, who was in Eretz Yisrael, when he would think about the infamous kutach habavli, our whey dip that sounds like sourdough and sour bread and penicillin, and it's a milchtika thing that it supposedly is like a pellet that drops to the bottom of your stomach. So when Rabbi Yochanan, Rashi says, when he wouldn't think about it, he would get sick. He would spit. Rabbi Yosef, who seemed to get very very defensive. Rabbi Yosef was from Bavel, who obviously was a big fan of Kutach Habavli. He would get offensive, like when someone would say it. Right? So now, Anon mitranagolta de Reb Abba, right? First of all, we in Bavel can't stand your tranagolta de Reb Abba. So in other words, that you're dissing our kufla kabavli. We're not big fans of your soaked chicken. V'od Amarav Gaza Zimnacha the one time Ikloyas lahasam. I came to Eretz Yisrael. Va'avdis kutich the Bavli, and I made Babylonian dip. And Sholomine called Bricham Arva, all the people in Eretz Yisrael, even the Chol in Eretz Yisrael, they wanted a piece of the action. So they enjoyed very much this Kutach HaBavli. It was a popular dish. Avrami, I want you to go ahead and Google Kutach HaBavli and make us some, okay? You're muted. Okay, anyway.
You can eat that on Tisha B'Av.
Kol Shaloi Ba B'chamin. We said that what? You shouldn't go ahead and you put water on it. And let's say you do had the chasan on the salted fish. What's the halacha? If you go ahead and had the chasan on the salted fish, what's the halacha? So adichamai. So you got a Spanish mackerel, you got the salted fish that's been in the barrel for how long, and now you're going ahead and you're dumping water on it. What are you over? Is it the Rabbanan, the Raisa? Some Rabbi Yosef, Adir Chayav Chatas. It's the Raisa. You over Bishul. You take a herring that's been in a barrel, you put hot water on it, you Chayav Chatas. Over Ma'abred Ravina, Afana Nami Tanina, Chutz Meliach Yashan. What does the Mishnah say? With the exception of Meliach HaYashan, the Kluyas HaAsponim, and the Spanish mackerel, Shad the Chasan Zui Gemar Malachtan. It says that Adacha is the Gemar Malacha. Gemar Malacha is mashma, that what? That's the end all. That's the most you can do with it. Which would be, he's associating that with a Chi of Chatas. Shama Mino, Shma Mino. It's a good raya, Chayav Chatas. Now, Yosef Rav Chia, the Gemara now digresses. The Gemara digresses in a very interesting conversation. Yosef Rav Chia Barabba, Rev Asi, Kamed Rav Yochanan, Yosef Rav Yochanan become a namname. He was sleeping. Amalei Rav Chia Barabba Rav Asi. So the Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan, is sleeping, and Rav Chia Barav and Rav Asi having a conversation. And the first question is, why are the oifis in Eretz Yisrael in Bavel fat? You want a fat chicken, you want a fat hen, go to Bavel. Mashenkin in Eretz Yisrael, they weren't. So Amalei, so Rav Asi told him, Chlach Midbar Aza, go to the Gazian desert, go to Aza is Gaza, and I'll go ahead and show you fatter hens than Bavel. But now, the second question, what's the reason that people in Bavel were sameach during the regel? In Eretz Yisrael, it's mashmanat. So the Gemara says, the people in Bavel, guys, were exceedingly poor. The Gemara in Kedushin says that 10 measures of poverty came to the world, and 9 were taken by the Babylonians. You know, that's the famous Gemara. The 10 levels of Znus came to the world, the Arabs took 9. 10 levels of Dibur came to the world, and women took 9. There it says 10 levels of poverty came to the world, and the Babylonians took 9 of it. So they're very poor. So since they were very poor the rest of the year, when it came to the regel, they was exceedingly happy. And the third question, why did they go ahead and dress so nice? It seems in Bavel, they would wear the frock, they would wear the kapata, they would really, when they have the nice hat, the Hamburg, they looked really nice. The Fishain of B'nai Torah, that's of course the people of Bavel want B'nai Torah. So since they're B'nai Torah, they had to make up for it by looking the part. Now, fourth question, why are they musahamim? Why are they musahamim? They're sweaty and smelly and disgusting. Since they eat shkatz and ramashim, we had the Gemara earlier, it increases their body temperature, right? It increases their body temperature, so as a result, they are sweaty musahamim as a result of what? Of their body temperature being increased. Now, this conversation is going on, and between Rav Chia Barab and Rav Asi, and Rabbi Yochanan was sleeping the whole time. Now, Isyayebu Rabbi Yochanan, he woke up, and now he decides to really, I think he did like the answers that Rabbi Chia Barab gave. I know he didn't like the answers that he gave. What does he say? Amalahu. He said to Rav Asi and Rav Chia Barab, Dardiki, kindlech. Didn't I tell you? Say to Chachma, you're my sister. If it's clear to you, the Bar Halacha or an answer to a question, like your sister, she is surlecha, meaning what? That just like in Aroyas, that your sister is asa to you, so too in halacha or questions, you should answer if it's clear to you. On the other hand, if you don't know, right, don't say it. So amruah. They said, so you answer some of these questions. So now, what was the question? Why the birds in Eretz Yisrael not as fat as the birds in Bavel? Listen to this, guys. Because the birds in Bavel never went into Gullus. The birds in Eretz Yisrael went into Gullus after the Churban Bayis. As a result of the Churban, they went into Gullus. Now, how do you know they went into Gullus? Right, Shenemar, because it says, Shanan Moyav min Urav. Moyav, they were Shanan, they were quiet, min Urav from their youth. The Shoiket hu al Shmarav, they rest upon the Shmarim, or the leads of the grapes. Uba Goylu Holach, they didn't go into Gullus, and the pasuk concludes, Al Kain Omar Taimai Boy, the tam stays with them and they didn't lose their flavor. So therefore, since the Babylonians, the Moab stayed, they didn't lose their flavor. Who adin, the birds of Bavel did not lose their flavor, right? If you chasam in a safe, it's missing the last part. And the pasuk finishes off. Okay, all my time boy. So the time remained there. Mashen came in Eretz Yisrael, they went into Golus. Now the question is, how do you know for Hacha Minalahu? How do you know that good we went into Golus after the Churban Bayis? But how do you know the birds? You know, the birds and the animals went into Golus. How do you know they went to Golus? For Hacha Minalahu the Galu, the Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chamishim U'Shtayim Shana Le'Avar Ir Yehuda. Now historically, there was 70 years between Bayis Rish Golus Bavel. But in reality, in the 52nd year of the Golus, Koirash let us begin rebuilding the Bayis, and it was finished 18 years later as a result of what? Or Dayavish. And the story of Purim happened in between, right? So the 52 years, Lo'ava Ish Yehuda, no person came to Yehuda until Koirash let him back to start rebuilding. Shenemar, it says, Al Hahorim Esa B'chi V'nehi, on the mountains I'll raise up my crying, my weeping. From the Oifa Shemayim V'Behema Nadadu, they wanted halachu, they went. Behema b'gematria, guys, is chamish v'tartin. Base hey mem is 40, hey is 10, and base it's 52. Rabbi Gematria chamish v'tarta, it was 52. So we know that what the Behema Nadadu, the animals in the Oifa Shemayim were out for 52 years. They were in Golus. So it's a raya. So since they went into Golus, they lost their fatness.
What a great Gemara for today. What an amazing Gemara for today.
Absolutely. It gets even more amazing. All the animals and birds that left Eretz Yisrael, they came back, with the exception of the Spanish mackerel. Now, Bavel, guys, is lower than Eretz Yisrael. Bavel is lower. Eretz Yisrael you have to go up to. Sahani Madre de Bavel, the slopes of Bavel, Mayel ein Eitam. The slopes of Bavel, the water returns to ein Eitam. That's the spring that's outside the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, all the fish were able to go back to Eretz Yisrael using this route. For high, but the mackerel, even the loy shara shidbe, since it doesn't have a strong spine, like matzah. You ever see those nothing to sick a salmon going back to its spawning grounds where it was born, right? The strength it takes to fly to go up against the current, and they're able to do it. So this Spanish mackerel was not able to. And he couldn't even go along the regular route. So that explains why the animals are in Bavel, the birds, because they went into Gullus. Now, why are the Mayadim in Bavel happier than those in Eretz Yisrael? Because the people in Gullus were not part of the curse that lessened our simcha as we're going to see, a pasuk that the pasuk says, Vishbati kol Mesaisa chaga, and I'll end all her Mesaisa joy, chaga of her mayadim, chacham, Chodesh, Shabbata, and Shabbos, Chol Mayada, and what? All the mayadim. All these things were said in a pasuk in Hosea, ukasiv, and this is so appropriate. This was Shabbos Chazayin. This was the Haftarah from Shabbos Chazayin last week. Chodshechem wadechem sana nafshi. Your new months, your mayadim, my nefesh hates. Nafshi. Hayalai l'troyach. They became a burden for me. So you see that what? This is the klala of people v'shasta moyed, not treating the moyed with the proper respect. In terms of the moyed was there's a reason for bahab, guys. The reason for bahab is we're scared about a royas on the moyed. So you made the mayadim into you didn't treat them with kavod, and as a result, what? You lost the simcha of the moyed. Mashenkin chutzlaris wasn't part of the klala. I heard from Chassidish Rebbe, that's the reason we have 2 days Golis, 2 days in Eretz in Chutzlar. Eretz only has 1 day, but we get to be Misameach 2 days because it's not part of the klala of that in Eretz Yisrael. Now it says that you shouldn't be matriach. My hoyolai l'shayach. What does it mean? They became a burden to me. Some Rebbe Lazar, Makadosh Baruch Hu, loy dayin Yisrael shechaytim l'fanai. It's not enough that you was chayta. Ela shematrichen. I see you trouble me. Leida eza gezerah kasha of and which gezerah I should bring upon you. You know, there's so many things which I can bring upon you. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, ein lecha kol regel v'regel shloi basa baleshel sipurei. An example of the klala. Again, a crazy thing in the town of Sipurei, every yontif who would show up the army, the Goyish army to tax Klal Yisrael. Not Peshita, just bare timing. But as we know in Yiddishkeit, Via timing, there's no such thing as mikra. There's no such thing as mikra. But Lu, it just happened to be on the Moed, the guy would show up. Just Mamish Runi Yantif. From Reb Chanina, Ein L'chol Kol Regel V'Regel Shlei Bo L'Teveria, Egmoin V'Katmoin V'Bal Zmoira. There wasn't no Yantif, right? In Feria, that an Egmoin, Katmoin, Bal Zmoira, there's all kinds of tax collectors and governors and all kinds of balabatim of the goyim. They would come to go ahead and run Yantif. Another question: why do people in Bavel dress so beautifully? So he said they're not bnei Torah, correct? He said he disagrees because that's not the native land. Right? They're not the native land, and since they're not the native land, they have to go ahead and show themselves different in their way they dress. The Armenian people would say, "V'maser Shamai." In my city, my name. It's enough to distinguish people know me by name. The loy masa, if I'm not in my city, is toisvoy. So it has nothing to do with the teretz that Rav Kia Barabba gave Rav Asi. The fact that it's speaking that they're not in Torah, therefore they had to wear the lavush. They had to wear the lavush to distinguish themselves from the people there, because that wasn't their place. Bavel. Okay. Haboyim Yashris Yaakov. This is going to go ahead and be a riot to Rabbi Yochanan that the people in Bavel were bnei Torah. It says Haboyim Yashris Yaakov Yotzitzu Parach Yisrael. Haboyim Yashris Yaakov. They go ahead. Yaakov comes. Yashris means to take root. Yatzitz uparach Yisrael. They'll blossom, right? Tanur Rabbi Yosef Elu Talmidei Chacham Sheba Bavel. So you see that clearly Rabbi Yochanan. That's the raya. According to Rabbi Chia bar Abba, they weren't Talmidei Chachamim, and therefore they wore their clothing. According to Rabbi Yochanan, they wore the clothing because their name wasn't recognized, right? So here you have them in Bavel with their Torah. Joyson sits in the Parach and the Torah. They made blossoms for the Torah. So you see the people in Bavel were Talmidei Chacham like Rabbi Yochanan. And the final question: why are the goyim so zuhamim? They're full of zuhama. They're just ma bein oleveinam, fellas. Ma bein oleveinam. Anu by shon rachman v'gam lechasadim emeinam. The reactions of goyim, how they can act. And some people say to me, can you imagine if this football player spoke about Jews, and he would have said that about the blacks, he would have been ostracized. They would be outside his apartment. They'd be breaking down the walls. Jews, this anti-Semitism. What do the Jews do? Jews do what Jews do. We know that's part of the culture, but the idea of publicly going and looting and running and doing all the things that's not part. That's not it. That's not part of us. And there's a reason. And this is the reason. And this is the reason. It's because they didn't stay by Sinai. Their neshamas were not by Sinai. Their neshamas weren't there. Shebeshah, in the time, Sheba Nachash al Chava, Itel Basuhama. The Nachash guys had relations with Chava. The reason why he wanted to kill Adam was to go ahead. He wanted to really, he enticed Chava because Nashim Dait and Kalas, women are more gullible, but his plan was to go ahead and kill Adam and get Chava. So from the beginning of time, when there was Kedusha, there was the antithesis of Kedusha, which is Taiva of Ha'avera, and Ha'avera is Nus. And this, and he brought it to fruition. Sha'amdu Sinai, Paskuzah Maslan. Those that stood by Sinai, the Zuhama left. The Zuhama left at Sinai, by Sinai, guys, everyone got better. Everyone got better. If you were blind, you could see. If you were crippled, you could walk. Everything. That's why you ever see on signs in hospitals, often they have called Mount Sinai, right? Why is it called Mount Sinai? It's because they got better. They got better. How Sinai was, they got better. So the Zahama also, not only did they physically get better, but spiritually they also got better. Spiritually also got better. The Chacham did not stand by Sinai. The Zahama does not leave them. So that's the difference, and that explains why they who they are. What about Gerim? What about Gerim? So Amalei, Afagav the Inulei Have, even though they weren't there, Mazlayu Have. Their mazel was there, their malach was there. The chsiv, Eis asher yeshnei poyimanu amerayom l'fnei Hashem Elokeinu, ve'eis asher einu poyimanu Hashem Elokeinu. Now, there's a Gemara in Yevamis that says there are different oitzois and shemayim with different neshamas, and there's one called Guf, and Guf is where the Jewish neshamas come from. We get our neshamas from there. So the possibility is that the mazel of the ger that stood by Sinai influences that the guf of the goy should come from the same oitzer as us. And then it's just a matter of time till it comes to fruition in his sojourn on earth. But it has to come from that source. Because again, you see, those who stood at Har Sinai, right, it had to be, that's the only way to get purified. The ultimate purification that took place at Sinai, that's the only way to explain a ger. And even, it didn't say that, don't worry, this Bechira they can change. No, it seemed to be a very physical, metaphysical thing. It seemed to be very metaphysical. You had to be there in some shape or form. It could be the mazel was there was enough. A second pshat in this, Upligi de Rav Abba Bar Kahana. And he who says that the goy got the zuhama, the Jews lost the zuhama at Har Sinai, argue on the following, on Rav Abba Bar Kahana. Rav Abba Bar Kahana, at shloishet bayros le paska zuhama me'avosenu. Up until 3 generations, it did not stop the zuhama. Meaning, by Avram there was zuhama, by Yitzchak there was zuhama, but it left. How did that accomplish? Avram choyled es Yishmael, and Yishmael went ahead and took out part of the zuhama. Yitzchak choyled es Esav. Yitzchak then had Esav. That took out the rest of the zuhama. Yaakov choyled Yud Bei Shvatim, and there was no imperfection. All the Yud Bei, it says, Vayishtachvu Yisrael Rosh Hamita, Al Shahoista Mitasha Shlema. He bowed, it says Pashas Vayechi, he bowed to the head of his bed, that all the children that were born as a result of his bed were all tzaddikim. So what was that a raya, guys? They were all tzaddikim. That paska zuhama. It was unnecessary to have anyone to remove the pagam. He didn't need an Esav. He didn't need a Yishmael. His bed was perfect, and that's the raya, guys. Why we say Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That was their job, to purify the zera of Yisrael. And then once the purification was filled, then they went to Mitzrayim to go ahead and become avodim. But they had to first get rid of the zuhama, because until they got rid of the zuhama, it would be not possible to go ahead and become the Jewish nation. They had to get rid of the zuhama, the spiritual of what the nachash placed in us. Shalohoya ben shum doifi, in his bed there was no shum doifi, there was no any shemitz of an avera whatsoever. So Abba Bahana says it had nothing to do with Sinai. It had everything to do with the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov purifying Kal Yisrael. I want to wish you all again. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to go ahead and try to remember something that we don't have, something that we didn't have. I always focus on a minute of the day, even for 1 minute. I have one scene in my mind. My Rosh Hashiva is buried on Har Zeisim. And every time I go to his kever, I turn around and I look down, and what do I see? I see the Mosque of Omar on the Mosque of Omar, on the Makam HaMikdash. And I say, oh, Rabbi Shalom's got to be in such pain. Rabbi Shalom's got to be in such pain to see this. And then I say to myself, well, he can end this pain, can't he? He could do whatever he wants. And the answer is he can't do whatever he wants because meaning Kaviyachol, he made his rulership of the world contingent upon us and our actions and what we do. And when we're Royal Lakach, and we feel his lack in the world, and we can go ahead and be Koil, then the Mosque of Omar will be gone in a second. And then the big Sheni Shlishi will be Yared from Shemayim for Amud Shalesh. So Bez Hashem, even for a minute, have that in mind, try to think and tap into the loss that we have and as much as we can. Wish you all, they say a meaningful fast is not the right word. I wish you all a meaningful thought. That you should go ahead and for 1 second feel, fasting you're all going to fast, but for 1 second to go ahead and feel the loss of Rabbi Shalom in this world. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you for joining my share, especially 12 o'clock on Erev Yontif. And Bez Hashem, we'll see some of you 10:15 tomorrow night.
Ishkayach, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have an easy fast.
Yeah.